It is 1:01, so I will call to order the Nevada State Board on Indigent Defense Services public meeting for April 16th, 2026. Let's start off, if everybody has access to the agenda, we'll start off with a call to order and a roll call, which is item number 1. So if we want to do that from there, that would be great.
Thank you, Kate. So Kate Thomas,
I'm here.
Joni Eastley,
Yep.
Chris June Kellyani, Eric Blakey,
Here.
Susan Bush,
Present.
Angela Cook, Lorena Dellinger, and then Joe Krim, he told me he's unavailable. Allison Jaffe. I thought I saw her on there.
Yes, I see her iPhone
She's
showing
okay.
as I do with Chris G's,
Okay,
and she
perfect.
chimed in earlier, so they are both online.
Okay, I got them both down. Abigail Frierson. And then Jared Hickman is unavailable as well. Justice William Maupin.
Here.
And then Judge Gary Fairman.
Sure.
Okay.
Great.
And I count that 7 voting members present, so it looks like we should have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. Thank you so much. All right, well, we will jump into item number 2, which is public comment. And this is limited to comments that are on items on our agenda. We're not going to be taking action on a matter raised under public comment unless the item has specifically been included on this agenda. Do I have, and these are limited to please 3 minutes. Do we have anyone on with us that would like to make public comment? If you could please raise your hand or come off mute.
Madam Chair, it's Joni Eastley. I just want to let the board members know that if they don't have a copy of the agenda in front of them, it's posted on the DIDS website.
Thank you, Board Member Eastley. That is very helpful. Okay, I don't see any public comment. And so I would love to move into item number 3, which is an introduction of new board members or recognition of vacant board members. I know we had asked for Abigail Frierson, but I don't think she's on. So do we have others that we want to mention? Mr. Handy.
Yes, I think Judge Fairman's on the line if he wants to give a brief introduction. We're happy to have him aboard.
Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to be a member of this board. And just a little bit of my backstory. I've been in Ely, Nevada since 1978. I was born and raised in Reno, and after law school, went out to clerk for a district court judge, Judge Hoyt at that time, with the intentions of never staying in Ely and returning to Reno. But I soon became quite attracted to Ely together with my wife. I went into the DA's office out there initially. At that time, we were allowed to have private practice. The DA at that time, Bob Johnston, and I had a little private practice. And after 3 years, I left the DA's office just to pursue our private practice. For the 33 years that I was in private practice, after the DA's office, I had a broad civil practice and did criminal defense as well for the 33 years, all over Nevada, but primarily in rural Nevada. I was appointed to the bench by Governor Sandoval in 2013. And about 3 or 4 years ago, my wife and I decided maybe it would be good to start thinking about retirement. And we picked at the end of 12 years, which would have been the equivalent of 2 terms to retire. But after appointment, I ran for 2 terms unopposed and decided to retire in the middle of my 3rd term. And I'm now a retired judge and not actively practicing law and pursuing a lot of other matters that my wife and I enjoy.
Thank you so much and welcome to the board. We're pleased to have you joining us.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir. Judge Moffman, please go ahead.
He is selling himself a little short. He had a near miss at getting appointed in the early 2000s by the commission.
Very good.
So welcome.
Thank you. And I believe when I checked, I don't know, a couple days ago, I think he is already listed on the DIDS website under board members. So it's too late to jump off. We welcome you, and you're like Hotel California. You're stuck with us. Thank you. Any other new announcements on board members? Director Handy.
I'll just briefly state, like, we've been working with the governor's office, with their board's kind of folks, to make sure everybody's got their appointment letters, that we've got oaths back from everybody. Thanks everybody for working with us and them as we try to get everything ironed out. It was a lot of back and forth for several of your appointments for a while. I think we're down to just one to finalize. Otherwise, thanks again, everybody. Really appreciate that help.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, well, we'll move on to item number 4 on the agenda. It is the approval of the minutes. As mentioned previously, these were sent out. If you don't have access to them, it's a 12-page document that we received yesterday. I didn't see anything.
Madam Chair, I reviewed those. I thought they looked good. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Joni. Do I have a second from the board?
Madam Chair, I'll second the motion. Eric Blakey.
Thank you, Mr. Blakey. Is there any board discussion? And is there any public comment on that? All right. All of those in favor of approving the minutes from the February 6, 2026 board meeting, please say aye.
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 If there's any opposition, please speak up. All right, hearing none, we're going to move on to item number 5, which is the Department of Indigent Defense and board updates. This is a discussion only item, and I will turn this over to Peter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly, we only have one sub item on this, and that we've hired a new ASO1. Her name is Patricia Segura. We stole her from a different agency in state government, like you find the best employees. So she just started this Monday, so she's still kind of finding where her fit's going to be. It's a new position for the agency. She's going to be kind of taking the leadership role in dealing with our fiscal, accounting, budget management. So that hopefully will take some of the burden off of what the three of us have been doing to kind of fulfill that role and put a little bit more onto her plate. We're really happy to have her aboard. She's extremely well qualified, probably overqualified in a lot of ways, but we're really happy to have her here, and we think she's going to make a big difference. So happy to welcome her aboard.
Excellent.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, and welcome, Patricia. All right.
Thank you.
We look forward to working with you. ASO is no small feat, so we know that you're up to the task, and we'll keep you on your toes. Thank you so much. Let's move on to item number 6, which is a discussion item as well. This is on NRS 180.440. It's an update. We have 2 pieces under this, an introduction and overview, and a summary reporting from our outreach advisors. I'm going to turn this over to Homa.
Good afternoon, Homa Sayar, Homa, last name Sayyar. I just wanted to acknowledge for Member Blakey that we are all thinking about Churchill County and your recent sudden loss of your sheriff, and we really appreciate that you're even on today. I know that's got to be, especially in small tight knit communities, that's just something we're all thinking of you. So, and I'm sure the board agrees. But but for our item, we're in an interesting position. We have all of our roles filled currently. So we have David Sheik in the south. We have Derek Lopez doing the I-80 corridor, and then we've added David Niter. So names all start with D. So we got 2 Davids and a Derek. And we were able to have that all meet in person in March. David Sheik was kind enough to come up, and we had kind of a mini summit. We broke down actually a lot of what we saw in the monitor's report. So I won't belabor things that I think will kind of be covered later, and then I can also supplement in writing. But suffice to say, just trying to manage the tension between some of the recommendations in the 17th report regarding not having a chilling effect on attorneys' participation in terms of scrutinizing the data, scrutinizing their billing, that kind of stuff. But then, in the 18th report, sort of the call for something that was perceived as more systematic of the review of efficiency of attorneys. And so that was the topic we all discussed, just, tapping into their experience and their understanding. How much can we see in a courtroom? How much do we see from pulling filings or looking at legal server data? And so I know our executive director will touch later on some of the ideas to really organize a lot of the data, the good data we do have and that we've been collecting, and making sure we have eyes on attorneys and their performance. But having kind of that annual look besides sort of, we do have, I'll say ad hoc, but what we're actually doing is we're highly responsive. So if something comes up, if an oversight attorney flags an issue in court or something an attorney is struggling with, we can meet that, either immediately with the oversight attorney or so soon thereafter with resources, with guidance, with assistance. I would hate to, in service of a, sort of a written process, miss out on that immediate assistance that can benefit clients directly. So with that in mind, we launched what we're calling resource forums. We've so far had one of each of these forums. One is a practice management forum, and it was something that we identified that a lot of these attorneys are solo and small practitioners, and really their challenges aren't in their legal skill or their training or their commitment to the cause. They're having challenges running a law firm, and those are things that we can actually, try to get them resources on about how to put in for a county contract, what terms, how to read those terms, that sort of thing. And that's, we have that session for sort of that small business owner perspective. And then the other session we were having are holistic practice resource forums. So as you may be aware, I have a significant background in like disability rights with the state and in private practice. So being able to connect people with maybe civil resources for their clients. This month we covered, if you've got a client that's going into custody. I recently had a call from an attorney who didn't know what to do in order to assist them with placement of their children. And they weren't aware that there's a 6-month written temporary minor guardianship that you can just fill out, don't have to go to court. And the attorneys were appreciative of just those little tips that can help them be able to give their clients resources. The forums were really successful. We had in one forum, we had a brand new DIDS attorney, new graduate, join out in Elko, and she saw it as an opportunity. She just gotten on the list to sort of find out what we were all about. And major shout out to Derek Lopez. He was able to offer, and then already had her shadow him at court, ask him questions, chat about what they saw, because we're excited that she's excited to be part of DIDS, but nobody in her firm has criminal law experience. And so we want to make sure that we're really fostering people who want to go back home and practice rural indigent defense. So that was exciting. And then we also had, we were able to connect attorneys with resources. Specific to Lyon County, we had a very productive touch base with an attorney with a contract out there. I believe it, about some of the things that came up in the report, and we'll obviously cover those as we go. But really what we've identified through oversight, through interaction with all, our expert kind of professionals, is there's no one right way to handle these community needs. We're seeing some novel things in Douglas. We're seeing something different in Nye. And then Lyon has its own sort of law firm model. And even the state public defender is dealing with its different models. So what we want to do is allow for innovation while also having holistic resources to support counsel. And then we had stopped putting the actual individual reports on the website. We found that was not really serving the message of supporting folks. We have them, they're obviously public records. We've provided them as they come into the monitor, but we had a request last year about synthesizing that information into something more digestible for the board. So you could absolutely have the source material, but more the trends we're seeing, because just between 2 weeks ago when I was preparing my notes for today and right now, 5 different things have shifted. And so it's moving very quickly, but we've seen some really good wins in Humboldt County. The use of an expert significantly improved an outcome on a pretty significant sentence for a young man that Derek Lopez was able to observe that matter. And then, so we're having a lot of wins, and we want to balance the positive and how hard these attorneys work. From talking to these attorneys in forums, some of them are saying, it's just nice to have people to talk to who understand the challenges that we have. And I always want to give space for what they're facing. And we have our contract coming up with the National Association for Public Defense. That will be our technical assistance to identify and then actually implement some changes. And then we've also got started on our U.S. Digital Response contract, which is to improve and replace our case management system. A huge ask from the rural attorneys is to be able to use that driving time can they be able to enter time or make notes with an app or something so that they can be efficient while they're traveling, and then also have better ways to enter travel. So we've been able to learn these things through oversight, and we're really excited about that. But I will turn it over, if there's no questions, I will turn it over to, let me go. So we'll go alphabetically. We can start with Derek Lopez, then Dave Nider, and then David Sheep. Just they have sort of, with attention to time, they have some brief updates, but we all meet regularly, and we're also beta testing soon some new reporting forms because I've been going out and observing with them. I did a Carson City visit, my county visit, Winnemucca, and seeing what would flow better and make for more instant reporting and data. So I'll turn it over to Derek Lopez.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I've got 5 counties that I'm observing alphabetically: Douglas County, Elko, Humboldt County, Lander, and Pershing County. And all of those counties appear to be doing well with their indigent defense. Starting with Douglas County, as the monitor's report reflects, they've added a 6th contract attorney. And I was hoping Brian Filter would be on the line. Last I talked to him was in March. And at that point, they were still on board to have a 7th attorney by July. So hopefully that's still on track. And that does not include the position of Brian Filter. So they have 6 attorneys right now, not counting Brian Filter. And hopefully we'll have a 7th one by July. I did have an opportunity to watch a jury trial there that was on a misdemeanor, domestic battery. It did result in a conviction, but the attorneys did a good job. So it was good to see them at work, and things do appear to be going well there. Alexis Duker from, I think primarily from Nye County representation, is very zealous and doing a good job for her clients. Very happy to have her in Douglas County. Moving on to Elko, the public defender's office is still short a few attorneys. I know they're looking to recruit, they're trying to recruit, but they're still down some positions, and that has meant more hourly attorneys have been assigned to cases. From what I've observed, those attorneys are doing a good job. I did watch 2 misdemeanor trials earlier this month, one by one of the new public defenders out there, and the other one was by an hourly appointed attorney. The one with the hourly appointed attorney, he did a good job. It resulted in an acquittal. The new deputy public defender's trial, that client was charged with 6 counts, 3 of them more serious misdemeanors, and then 3 lesser offenses. The judge ended up acquitting on the 3 more serious charges and convicted on the 3 lesser offenses. But for a young attorney, I thought he did a very good job. With Humboldt County, Andrew Coates, the state public defender, had planned to be part of this meeting. I spoke with him earlier today. He's sick and not able to attend, but he has updated me a bit that it looks like they're on board to have a full-time public defender in the Humboldt office. That's still not quite there yet, but they're interviewing, and one of the prospects he thought looked pretty good in terms of committing to living in Winnemucca and providing those services. They're also looking to contract with another attorney to help with the caseload that currently Mansfield Mayo is covering, or is a conflict for them. And he believes that contract should be signed and in place hopefully by June. But if not, by July. But with both of those, he felt pretty confident those are going to come through. So hopefully they do. With that office also, once they do have the full-time attorney, they do have a full-time secretary there. They do plan to add one. They've got a full-time investigator there, and they plan to add a second one once they have the attorney in the office. And I believe they're on track with people to fill those positions. From what I'm observing, the Mansfield Mayo firm is primarily Massey Mayo doing the work, but Nestor Marcial has taken a number of cases that I've seen, and both of them are very, very good. They're dedicated to their clients, they're good advocates, and so I'm pleased with what I'm seeing. With the appointed hourly attorneys that are coming in, as Homa mentioned, I watched a jury trial out there, and the hourly attorney was able to get it. It didn't actually get to the jury. They finished the state's case. They finished the defense's case. There were a number of legal arguments that were made out of the presence of the jury during the course of that trial. And after they settled the jury instructions, the prosecutor moved to dismiss the charge. So it ended up being a dismissal, and it was because they couldn't prove their case. So there was going to be a jury instruction suggesting to the jury that they haven't met their case and it should be an acquittal. And the state ended up dismissing at that point. With again, the other attorneys appear to be doing a good job. The one case that involved a 17-year-old who had shot and killed his father, an hourly appointed attorney from Vegas assisted with that case. She was representing him, and she had the use of services, but the investigator in particular did a very good job in finding witnesses to help support the child's position as to the nature of the relationship with the father. And it really had big impact. And that case ended up coming down from a murder case to a manslaughter case. And with the use of the information from the investigator, along with a good argument from the attorney, what I thought was an excellent sentence where he was looking at 30 months prior to release or eligibility for parole. And because of the length of the case getting to that point, potentially he's eligible for parole in 6 months. So it really was a good outcome, and the attorney did a good job. With Lander County, and both Lander County and Pershing County, their volume is significantly less. The contract public defender in Lander County is Kyle Swanson, a lot of experience. From my observations, he's doing a good job. They occasionally use conflict counsel. They don't need them often, but when they do, it's primarily Deborah Amons, and she has a contract there to do that conflict work. She, from what I'm seeing, appears to be meeting with her clients, prepared for the hearings, makes good arguments, appears to be doing a good job. I've seen David Neidert, who's now one of the observers, with one case out there. He had the contract to do conflict work also. I had a chance to see him do the preliminary hearing, and he did a good job with his preliminary hearing. So I haven't seen any real issues with Lander County or Pershing County. Pershing County has Stephen Cochran as its county public defender. He also has a lot of experience. He's a zealous advocate, and I'm not seeing any problems with his work. The hourly attorneys that are assisting appear to be doing a good job. Pershing does now have a new district attorney. So following Bryce Shields' appointment to being district judge, Jack Bullock filled in as the interim DA, and now it's Derek Penny. I've only had a chance to see Derek once, so it's hard to tell whether he's going to be a problem for the defense in terms of guilty plea agreements or different things being last minute. Hopefully that's not the case. The only place I'm seeing that being a problem is Humboldt County, where quite frequently the DA's office is late with their guilty plea agreements. That's errors in their guilty plea agreements, problems of that sort. The other counties appear to be smooth with their DA's offices, and Pershing County had been with Bryce Shields as DA. Hopefully that'll continue to be the case with Derek Penny as the DA. But that's really all I have in terms of updates. I'm not seeing any problems. There's an occasional one-off that show up in my reports, but I'm not seeing any patterns of problems. So I'm pleased to be able to report that.
Thank you, Derek. And I'll just add in sort of our pre-meeting, the discussion was that really there's these one-offs and some of the challenges are sort of volume, but then also system issues, you know, whether someone's getting the guilty plea agreement the morning of and what those delays mean. And then I'll also mention regarding the state public defender plans for contracting, you know, the department is doing what we can to support the success of those in terms of assisting with scope of work, but then also identifying other obligations those attorneys may have so that they're not sort of over their skis. And if there was a confirmation of direction that went out across the board to our staff that anybody who does have sort of a full-time county contract should not be and won't be offered cases elsewhere. We shouldn't really be siphoning people from that dynamic. And then I'll just add in terms of system things, when I was in Carson City, had a chance to talk to the judges and they had some real, they were having their own challenges regarding e-filing, but we as an office were having delays in placing cases because attorneys administratively couldn't manage the paper filing, no matter sort of what the rate was. And this morning I had the opportunity to speak in front of the Carson City Board of Supervisors about their item to get the first JD into a modern case management system and e-filing. And so those are things that we can do because we have this information from our oversight attorneys so that maybe we can indicate our support, our help in implementing and getting good data when we can get these counties shifted. So I will turn it over to Mr. Neidert. From here, we can't see if people are trying to unmute. Casey, are you able to see if he did have a possible hearing coming around this time? He was going to be in a side courtroom, so I'm guessing he's in that meeting. So I will just mention for his part that he's been longtime experienced attorney in the rurals. He's been going out meeting folks, even out to Churchill County and spoke to people out there. He and I both went to Carson City and had a day at court, and I took him and we talked to the judges about his role. He did disclose that he has, it's not necessarily a conflict, but he did file for an elected race. And so we're doing, appropriate documentation and disclosure and screening to make sure that there's not the appearance of impropriety in relation to Story County because he is running for office out there. So I will shift it over to David Sheik if he is on.
Yeah, I'm on.
Yes, he's here. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
So I have 5 counties, same as Derek. I have the 5th and 7th Judicial District. We'll start in the 7th with White Pine County. Likewise to Derek, I received a call from Andrew Coates this morning and talked with him concerning several matters. He indicated that with the addition of the positions in Humboldt County, that the attorneys assigned to White Pine County from the State Public Defender's Office would no longer be covering any appearances in Humboldt, which was a concern that I had expressed several times in my recent reports, that they were not only covering White Pine, but covering appearances in Humboldt. And so it appears that they've taken steps to alleviate that concern, leaving those attorneys to concentrate on White Pine County. White Pine County, in addition to the State Public Defender, has a contract with Jane Eberhardy to cover a number of cases and any conflict cases. And between the 3 attorneys, it appears that White Pine is currently being covered and in compliance, especially with the removal of the Humboldt responsibilities. Andrew also informed me that there's a jury trial coming up for Robert Melchick, one of the state public defenders, in a misdemeanor case in municipal court, and that he will be traveling to White Pine County to observe that trial and be touching base with whoever he can while he's out there. And so it's encouraging that Robert is getting some trial experience on misdemeanor cases. Will help him in the long run. With regard to Eureka, we also have a contract with Jane Eberhardy to cover Eureka, which is a .3 full-time contract and Jane is covering Eureka fully at this point in time, and there haven't been any problems. There is the issue that no one filed to run for district attorney in Eureka, and so we're not quite sure how that's going to play out in the long run. If nobody if they don't come to a resolution on Eureka. With regard to Lincoln County, there's been a number of changes that we anticipated that have come to pass. Franklin Katschke, our primary contracted public defender, has now been appointed as district attorney in Lincoln County. He filed for the position and there was no opposition, and therefore the board went ahead and appointed him in the interim. April Bradshaw is remaining on to assist with any conflicts that come up for a short period of time in the district attorney's office. As to the public defenders, Shane Manueli is assuming primary responsibility. He was sort of second chair or second position to Franklin previously, and so Shane's going to be our primary public defender. And in addition, Lincoln County has entered into a contract with the new attorney, Hannah Bleak, who resides in Panaca and is very enthused on covering Lincoln County. She had been working with the Clark County Public Defender's Office, and I've been contacted by a member of that office. It was her supervising attorney, and heard all sorts of good things about her enthusiasm on taking this position. So Lincoln County appears to be covered with the changes that have taken place. Moving over to the 5th Judicial District, we have Esmeralda County, where we have a contract with Jason Ernest to cover those cases. Jason also has a contract with Nye County to cover the northern loop of Nye County. And so Esmeralda is sort of falls within, Goldfield is halfway between Beatty and Tonopah, and so it sort of makes sense that the same person covers that. So there are no problems with coverage and compliance in Esmeralda County, which brings us to Nye County. Nye County has had a number of issues that we've addressed over the years. It's hard to believe it's been a couple of years already that I've been doing this. We now have Robert Langford on board as the Nye County Council Administrator, and he's overseeing the 11 contract attorneys that are there. He's implemented a number of things, and I don't know if Robert intended to speak to cover those things. He's filed his monthly report addressing some of those issues. But we've seen a great deal of progress made in Nye County with Robert being retained, and with the county agreeing to certain changes, including removing the 432B cases from the contracts for our defenders. And so I'll leave that to Robert. If Robert doesn't want to address, I'll come back on. But Nye County is moving along. There's to be set up a selection committee and a committee, 5-member committee to review and evaluate the attorneys there in Nye County, and I'm looking forward to that process being implemented. One of the concerns that the monitor expressed several times in her last report was that we don't have a procedure in place to do annual evaluations of the contract attorneys or for the hourly attorneys. And we've had discussions and some proposals on how we're going to do that, but I'll probably leave that to Peter to address those efforts to comply with the monitor's request. I will state that we had a Zoom call the other day where we discussed some of these issues, and the primary focus for me is to figure out a way to get feedback from the clients as to what has taken place on their case, and it's difficult. They're not returning the evaluation forms. I'm not sure they're getting the evaluation forms. It's a difficult thing, and so one of the things we're looking at is when we close a case in legal server, that automatically generated is a email or postal mail that goes to the defendant with a survey for him to return. Now, we're not going to get a lot of them back, but at least we'll be getting some feedback, I think, that we're not getting now. And that's really where we need feedback is from the defendants on how they feel that they were represented. I mean, honestly, not all clients can be pleased no matter how good a job you do, but it helps to have some feedback that we can follow up on and address. If we're getting feedback saying, I never saw my attorney, he never came to see me, those are things that we can follow up on. And in that vein, if we can get full compliance with attorneys maintaining their time and case notes so that we can see what they're doing on cases, so we can verify whether or not the clients are responding accurately. We also discussed on finding a way to provide correctional institutions with forms that defendants can fill out and return. Once a person is sentenced to prison, it's hard to get them to return an evaluation. If we make those available through either the law library or through the administration of the prison or of the correctional institutions, maybe we can get some feedback from those individuals also. But at this point, we really, I don't feel are equipped to evaluate the performance of attorneys. We're doing the best we can, watching and observing and talking to other individuals and members of the justice community. But I think we need to find a way to get feedback from the defendants, from the clients, as to how the attorneys are doing. And so, unless there's some questions, that's all I had for my counties.
Thank you, David. And I'll just add that, we've got obviously the end of the case or the end of the main part of representation, but we do have a fairly, not, I wouldn't say steady, but we do receive sort of midstream complaints via paper form, via our online system. And what we do with those, our process is to we look into the legal server entries as Mr. Sheik mentioned, and definitely it's concerning when there's nothing in there and the client is saying they haven't talked to their attorney. But in plenty of other cases, the attorney is able to confirm and maybe deal with any sort of miscommunication or challenges that they're having. So we definitely don't want to wait till the end to hear from the clients. But one of the things we'd all discussed was, balancing sort of the attorney-client privilege issue of it's one thing for them to approach us, in the middle of a case. We don't want to be like soliciting directly that information while the case is still going on. So certainly we appreciate any thoughts, from the board. We have such a varied wealth of experience and knowledge and maybe even understanding of which are the best avenues in which counties. We are always looking to improve. I'm really proud of the team we have. I always learn so much when I talk to our folks, and they are really out there going above and beyond. Even, sometimes they hear about a hearing and then they go and get the jabs and look into it. So we just couldn't have asked for better folks who really care about this. And so that's just my shout out for them. And I'm really, really grateful. And I don't know if Mr. Langford's on, if he wants to mention anything on this item, or if
Nye County later.
If we have Nye County later on the agenda, maybe we can just wait for that. So I think there's no questions. And I know we go sort of fast. I guess what I'm trying to highlight is that there's so much also going on behind the scenes, that we're just trying to support folks, answer things. I do one-on-one calls with attorneys, connect them with resources. Folks watch these meetings and call us afterwards. So we definitely, these are busy, busy people. And I will yield the floor.
Yeah.
All right. I did see Robert or Mr. Langford, you are on. You came off mute for a second. So did you want to add anything, or you want to wait till later?
I don't want to steal David's thunder, so I'll wait till later.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Awesome. All right, board members, lots of good information from our outreach advisors. They were, as Homa said, we're also soliciting information or advice, I guess you will, tips. We can certainly gather that here. You can reach out separately. I will see if the board has any other discussion on item number 6. All right. Thank you very much to everyone that participated. We will move on to item number 7, which is an item that is for possible action. We've got 5 items under here with the CLE compliance, the pipeline update, annual conference update, virtual training, and training. So I'm going to let you run right through that. Brenda, I believe this is your item.
Thank you, Chair. Brenda Roberts for the record. So for a CLE compliance update, when I was here with you last meeting, you had directed me to go ahead and give a drop dead date for attorneys to get their proof of CLE compliance for 2025 into me in order to remain active on our list. In the end, I ended up removing 4 people from the list for failure to comply. There are a couple of people who just said, take me off, I don't want to deal with this. And there are 2 attorneys who have not yet complied. One of them is simply needs to get me their CLE transcript today. They're at the conference. I did go on vacation shortly after our conference, and our deadline was supposed to be March 31st. I've been very busy since returning from vacation last week, so they're going to get me that today. I followed up, and another attorney who is going to get me their transcript tomorrow. If I don't have those, they'll be removed from the list at that point. For the pipeline and lasso, I did go to Portland in February for a multi-law school job fair for the Pacific Northwest Consortium of Law Schools. I had several really good discussions with students there looking for something different. It looks like at least 2 of those students will be coming to Nevada as lasso interns this summer into our rural counties, so I'm very excited for that. There is a Boyd hiring event starting in August. It's a multi-day event that they notified us of. And we have sent that information out to our public defender offices that are still recruiting. Churchill County has 1 opening left. They have an intern in it, and she's going to join them in the fall. So it leaves Elko and Carson City that are still recruiting. And offering, to send their attorneys down or then the public defender down for recruiting as needed to help support them in that. And then we could also go for them if we need to do that as well. And then we've learned that some of the law schools that we've worked with in the area may not have all the information they need about our LASSO program. So we are working to make sure that that information gets out to their students, their career services program. So it's been nice having that feedback. Homa was able to get that, I think, in the forums that she mentioned last month or earlier this month. So that was really helpful. Our annual conference was last month in Las Vegas, and the topic, of course, was litigating the area of AI and tech. We had a great turnout, about 65 people. It was a 2-day event spread over 3 days to give folks time to travel. We continue to get good feedback on that format. We got good feedback on the topic. It was a timely topic. People are concerned about it. People are excited about it. I was pleased to have board member Blakey there. It was nice to see him and get to know him a little bit. And this also, we tried an experiment with having breakout sessions that are skills-based sessions, cross-examining police officers, using AI properly, which there are a couple of hiccups with that one that we had to work around so that folks will still be able to get the information. And then we will be able to share some video from that conference as soon as I get some time to get it uploaded into a shareable format. Our virtual training update so far this year, in addition to the monthly legal server trainings that Stan has been holding, and a Justice Text class, which is the AI platform that we provide for audio and visual analysis. We've held several virtual CLE courses on medical records, reviewing medical records and proper blood draws. I'm still working on the CLEs that I mentioned at the last hearing. One is juvenile competency, or sorry, the last board meeting. One is juvenile competency. We've just confirmed the final panelist in that, and so we're working on a date. Another is identifying and effectively managing expert witnesses. Again, I've just confirmed a second panelist for that one. So I've reached out to find out what dates are going to work best for our presenters. I've been working with the presenters for our appeals and our ethics CLE, ethics and billing, and we've been sending PowerPoint presentations back and forth, and we're trying to finalize dates on those. I've also been working with the Washoe PD and the Alt PD in Washoe. So I've mentioned we're putting on a DNA clinic, tentatively scheduled for September. That will be an in-person clinic in Washoe County that we will also try to have recorded, but I'm not sure how logistics will work on that because it will be at the Washoe PD's office. And we're also planning a CLE with them on intergenerational communication. So how to speak with clients from different generations, just to improve communication, and also, colleagues and whatnot as well. And then still planning a CLE and extraordinary writs for defense attorneys. Finally, I've been started reaching out to our oversight coordinators and our council administrator from Knight County and talking about putting together a sort of an onboarding for not just attorneys that are new to being an attorney, but are new to being criminal defense attorneys. We have several experienced civil litigators that have come into the indigent defense field, and it's not a smooth transition necessarily. So we want to be able to help them. And we've talked about trainings on everything from how to put a file together to how to do the initial interview with your client, and how the different courts work. So we are in the nascent stages of developing better onboarding resources for attorneys that, again, are new to criminal defense. Part of that will include, and Homa touched on it earlier, is maybe having new attorneys shadowing or connecting immediately with the oversight contractor for the area that they're working in most, to kind of help introduce them to the world that they'll be working in. And then Homa had talked a little bit about the forums that we started last month, which is the Practice Management and Resource Forum, Holistic Resource Forum. And as a result of those, maybe the tidbits that we're able to dole out during those forums, put into a monthly newsletter so that folks who aren't able to attend still get the information. This will help us on some of the micro opportunities for learning, maybe 5 minutes of information that's not going to ever be a CLE, but the attorneys may need to know, putting it into a monthly newsletter so that they still have access to that information. And then the last is the training reimbursement update, and there are no updates from the last board meeting. We still are sending 7 attorneys to the Mountain Trial Skills in Salt Lake City later this month. We're still sending 1 attorney to the 2-week trial program in Iowa that's put on by the National Criminal Defense Council. And I still have the 1 attorney who's interested in going to a week-long DUI seminar in Las Vegas in October. And then, the attorneys know that they're free to reach out and ask for any reimbursements that they might want, but they often don't take me up on that. So. And that's all I have for today.
Brenda won't toot her own horn, but I will say I have never heard of a CLE or a conference where everybody sort of ran home and started trying to use what they learned. They were even trying it in the room. And so we have some cool follow-up that she and I are working on as far as requests for hands-on training, and then also state vetted license agreements for like discovery management tools. So I just seriously, it's very cool how excited people are about what they learned. New attorneys, more experienced attorneys. I've never seen a conference do that. So good job to Brenda and all of the people that she was working with as well, and the presenters.
Excellent. Thank you. And great job on the maintaining of the CLE compliance list and getting the folks to be our LASSO interns. I mean, you guys are doing great work. So can't say enough about that. Thank you both, Homa and Brenda.
Hey, Kate.
Yes,
This is Allison Jaffe.
Yep.
We did, I know several of us on the board were concerned about the training. And so I just want to give Brenda a real shout out for answering. And I'm sure she had things already planned, but this is so great. I'm just feeling really energy. We have the oversight attorneys, which I think have added so much. But I think what Brenda's doing is so important. And, it's showing. We had, 68 people come to the conference. That's amazing.
Yeah.
so I just wanted to thank Brendan and really appreciate your work.
Yeah.
Thank you. Other board members wanting to jump on the love pile or any other comments on item number 7 that Brenda reviewed for us on the training pipeline updates? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was raising my hand.
Oh, Justice Maupin, please go for it.
Has there been any attempt to bring in a writing specialist to deal with every level of experience in writing briefs and in communicating in writing? Because that's most of what our communications are with the court. And we did that at the Supreme Court with the Emory University Law School sent us the guy who co-wrote the Black's Law Dictionary, and it was just fantastic. It seems to me that if we could formalize something like that, all of a sudden everybody would be better writers, and they wouldn't be, about half of these programs are about how to deal with writer's block. And so it's just a thought that maybe that could be, if everybody agreed, that it could be formalized.
Thank you, Justice Maupin. Yes, I do have on my training wish list, which is sort of what I work from, writing courses. I actually did get to attend Brian Gardner's lecture at the Supreme Court when I was still there. And he is a very engaging speaker. Whether or not that translates to improved writing, I don't know. But he was absolutely worth listening to. I really enjoyed.
Well, on one occasion, I think you were there then. I don't know when you were at the court, but I came down and I was having a problem with writer's block, and so on a case, and so he was just teaching the spider routine, and I'm sitting there listening to this, and it was stunning. I as soon as it was over, I ran up and used the spider, and I wrote the brief in about 2 hours after that. So it makes writing a lot more fun. So something like that.
Thank you, Justice
Maupin.
Maupin.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. All right. Other comments from the board on item number 7? Suggestions? Okay, that was a possible action item. So I will look for a motion from the board to accept the updates as presented on the agenda.
Madam Chair, if I might, I think the action item flag was just in case there was any instruction about the CLE list, but I believe that is all current as far as, because even Brenda asked me, why was that an action item? And we were just talking about it.
Yeah.
I just work here, so thank you.
No,
all right.
we appreciate it.
It's all good. All right. If there's any members of the public that would like to speak on this item, because it is an action item, let us know by raising your hand. Otherwise, we can save that for the end of the meeting, and we'll move on to item number 8, which is our Davis litigation update. We're going to have Peter overview this report. This one is discussion only, I will point out for everyone. It includes 4 main items, 5 sub-items, so we'll jump in with the first one, which is the 18th report of the monitor. And Director Handy, I'm going to turn that over to you to overview for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, hopefully everybody received this. We sent it out to the board as soon as we got it from the monitor. It should have also been attached to materials, but again, the website, we had go live a new version earlier in the week. So some stuff might have been lost. Some stuff will be attached as soon as we get access. All the things we're discussing here will end up being attached certainly. This monitor's report kind of takes a different turn from the last couple of monitor's reports. Prior reports have been focused really on the kind of the ongoing deficiencies is what I'm going to call them. Things like workload compliance, not having a set standard for the standby counsel or stand-in counsel, not having some minimum standards for remote appearances, things like that. This one's kind of taken a few extra steps. As always, we use the monitor's reports as a roadmap for kind of where we're going to push our programming and what problems the monitor sees, right, as us being in a good position to solve or to address. So I've kind of quickly walked through some of the recommendations. Most of those can be found in a kind of generic form on pages 2 and 3 in our executive summary. I want to talk about a few that have come up that we're kind of addressing right away, and I'll talk about some more kind of systematic changes we have for some of the items that she brought up. First is the workload reporting on page 7. She starts mentioning, attorney time spent on 432B cases needs to be documented. This is something we've been communicating with the attorneys that we work with, so they can both identify what portion of the workload is going to that non-indigent defense work, and then also identify when we do the maximum contribution reimbursements, we're reducing the amount that's eligible for reimbursement by the amount of time that we're calling civil time, right? For 432B work, or it could be guardianship work, those other appointed cases where a contractor is spending contract time on non-indigent defense work. So communicating with the attorneys the reasons for that, and the counties, I think, are getting a better understanding of why we separate those out, why we ask the attorneys to record those time, that type of time. And we're working actually with several of the counties to have those removed from their contracts. Douglas County's represented that they've taken those attorneys, at least their contract attorneys, they haven't been appointing them to new 432B cases, so that the reimbursement is just for the amounts they're being paid for just doing indigent defense work. We've been working with Lorena Dillinger in Nye County to rework their contracts to do the same thing, to remove those 432B cases. So hopefully going forward, there's going to be far fewer issues with 432B assignments, especially those can be quite complicated cases, and they can eat away a lot of attorney time. So having the attorneys be fully dedicated to criminal indigent defense practice, not have to kind of learn an entire different area of practice to try and pursue both effectively and be able to focus just on what they're doing here, we think will result in better client results and better opportunities for the attorneys, I think, to do the work they're trying to do. The monitor then kind of discusses issues with particular counties. First was Lyon County. We actually kind of I'm going to be jumping around, I guess, here a little bit between the separate sub items just because they're kind of intertwined. The monitor goes over issues that kind of present in Lyon County. We talked about this before, where it's kind of difficult to determine under one of the contracts how many attorneys worth of representation is actually being provided. We've had pretty good communication recently with Cale Brock about his contract, the way that he organizes the attorneys who work with him to take cases, kind of how he wants to assign those out. And we're going to be working with him in the future to modify his contract to reflect what's actually happening, rather than just kind of saying, yeah, I'll provide 5 attorneys, because he doesn't have 5 employees. He doesn't have 5 subcontracts. So we're going to have his record keeping reflect that he works with other attorneys in legal servers. So we're capturing the data of how many cases are going where, who's taking those cases, and it'll be able to identify whether those attorneys are overloaded in other counties from either other assignments, whether they have other contracts, things like that. And then also identify how much of a contribution they're making, either kind of percentage-wise toward the total amount of Cale's work articulated in the contract, or in just number, equivalent of full-time attorneys, to see if they're either getting up to what's needed, or if there's at least availability for what's needed, to better kind of identify if there is an additional need that Cale's not able to meet under these contracts. Cale's on board already with making those changes. We're going to be reaching out to Josh Foley in Lyon County, who's always been great to work with for us when we're working with contracts and revising things. I don't anticipate any problems with getting these changes made. It's just going to take some time to go over kind of what the changes need to look like to reflect what's happening in Cale Brock's office. And then again, I think we're going to be memorializing the contract, right, the reporting requirements, so that it's transparent to Lyon County, to us here at the department, to the public, and to clients, right, who the attorney is, who they're reporting to, and kind of the nexus between all of those stakeholders. White Pine County was already mentioned and pretty well covered by David Sheik. As indicated, Andrew Coates says he's bringing on a new attorney, a deputy public defender in Humboldt County, and that new attorney will be kind of covering the cases that the White Pine County attorneys have been having to cover as a part of their workload, to make sure things are kind of continuing and productive in Humboldt County. So hopefully the 2 attorneys that are designated for White Pine County will continue work there full time and meet the compliance needs. the monitor, I think we'd all prefer, right, that the attorneys in any of these offices be located in those counties where they're working. And the monitor points that out. I think, us here in the department, certainly you as board members, those of you who live and work in rural counties, it's much easier to work with people who live and work in the same area as you do. We're working constantly with both the law school at UNLV and other law schools to try and bring in more attorneys to the rural areas. However, it still is a challenge, right, to bring in new professionals to rural Nevada, not just for attorneys, but also doctors, nurses, mental health professionals, accountants. So we're doing everything in our power to help either make that easier for them to do or to improve the incentivize them to do that through things like the LASSO program. We've been working with the governor's office to propose housing down payment assistance in the next legislative session, things like that, to help kind of incentivize people to move out there to really kind of build a life out there and hopefully enjoy practicing out there as a career. We're going to be working. So the monitor brings up again, I think it's something that's been brought up before, is getting the contracts from the counties to the department for review prior to their execution. Certainly that's difficult in some places where things are either happening very rapidly in the counties or they think they need a rapid turnaround. Like Lincoln County, for example, right? Well, Franklin Katchke went from being the public defender on the main contract to becoming the district attorney. The county went ahead and signed 2 contracts with the Shane Manueli taking that first contract and Ms. Bleak taking the second contract. And that didn't come through us for approval. So we're doing kind of 2 things to address that in the future. One is we're going to be revisiting our model contract, which many of you may remember from 2020, 2021, when the board approved the department's first iteration of a model contract that we're required to produce for the consent judgment. We're going to be revisiting that to both update it to have all the additional regulations that have been promulgated since, and then to also have something to provide to the counties to say, immediately, hey, here's our model contract. This has been approved by the board for compliance. This is something that meets all of our requirements. And if there's nothing if you don't change anything on this kind of form, it's going to be effectively presumptively acceptable, right? So that the counties don't have to have a long back and forth with the department or back and forth negotiations with the various attorneys that are potential contractors, hopefully simplifying the process, making it easier for the counties to understand that any of these contracts will count toward their maximum contribution, that they are going to be approved by the department, and that hopefully we're mitigating risk for both the counties and the attorneys who are engaging in these contracts. The second thing is, again, to kind of remind the counties to work with us when they're developing these contracts if they're going to be going out again. Like I mentioned earlier, we've been working with Nye County, Douglas County. We're going to be working with Lyon County to redevelop their contracts. All 3 of those counties have been good partners in the past, especially in the last couple of years, about bringing their problems to us. We have a good negotiation and kind of come up with sometimes novel, sometimes not so novel, but effective solutions. Hopefully we'll be able to do that, I think, in the near future, at least with those 3 counties. And then after we get that model contract, we'll probably bring it back to the board like we did the first time, I think before even I got here, and say, hey, board, could you please approve this as meeting all the regulations that you promulgated as our model contract? And that way the counties can feel secure that they're not going to have to do like a back and forth with us every time they want to go contract with a new attorney. One of the major things I think that was different in this report that we haven't seen in the same way in prior reports is discussion about the annual evaluations of listed attorneys. In the last several years, we've been kind of looking toward it to it as kind of we need to have people that can actually go see an attorney perform in court on the ground at least once a year. So that's why Derek and David are contractors, and why HOMA goes out to the various counties, sits in court. We try to capture at least once per year all of the attorneys on the list to the best of our ability. Obviously, we can't be everywhere at once, and there might be attorneys on the list who don't take a case, so there's no chance to make an observation of that attorney. The monitor it seems like wants us to go a step further, where we're going to be producing, I think it's kind of consolidating all the information we might have about each attorney on the list, and then producing some kind of report or an evaluation based on all of that information. We've already received significant feedback from a lot of the attorneys who are, I don't want to say skeptical. They're worried, right? They're concerned about having out in the public a government kind of generated performance evaluation or review of how they're acting as an attorney. And we're certainly, we have the same concerns, right? We don't want to be either discouraging people from taking these contracts or these jobs. We need more attorneys to come out here and do this work. And we don't want to, we also don't want to be in a position where we're evaluating somebody without enough information to make a very informed decision about what they're doing on the ground. So there are kind of two things about this that we're kind of taking forward. We're kind of developing a method of a systematic evaluation. What I'm proposing, I'll send out a kind of a short document to the board members so they can have a chance to look at it afterward, would be a panel evaluation. We probably have one of the DIDS deputy director, HOMA, and then one of the oversight advisors, and then an attorney off the list kind of form the panel. That way we have kind of our, the theory up here at DIDS. We have we're more familiar, I suppose, with things like ADKT 411, the standards for the defense function, the consent judgment, the 10 principles of delivery of individual defense services. We have the oversight professional who's experienced attorney, practiced for many years in any of their cases. They have regularly observed these attorneys and will bring those observation kind of insights to the panel. And then I think having a list member brings, it's a peer review. So they can feel confident that they're not being evaluated by us in the ivory tower who aren't practicing law every day, or even Derek, who's an oversight attorney and he's had many years of practice, but maybe doesn't take as many cases anymore and doesn't understand what the particular needs might be of a certain area or of a private practice or whatever the case might be. But that lay attorney would. Lay attorney is the wrong word. It's kind of an oxymoron now that I said it out loud. But the list attorney who can kind of round out the panel. And the idea would be that we're just kind of giving like a green light, red light evaluation. It's either they are over the term of the last year based on all the information that we have that's publicly available or that's been observed by the oversight attorneys or that's been collected in pursuit of kind of writing these evaluations, whether those attorneys over the course of the year have been effective, that they're competent, and that they are performing efficiently and effectively. So if they are, then it's kind of, we'll just note that on the list of counsel, qualified counsel, that for this last year, they've been given kind of a thumbs up. If for some reason the panel decides that they're not sure or they don't believe that a particular attorney being evaluated has performed effectively and efficiently over the last year, then under the statute, it'll get referred over to Brenda. And then we kind of make further determinations about, well, what's needed to bring this attorney back up to effective and efficient, right? Does this attorney need more training? Would they benefit from a particular specialized training? Do they need some more time just working lower level cases before they get to higher level cases? Could it be a caseload issue where an attorney just has too many cases and that's what's impeding their ability to be effective? And then helping work with that attorney to become effective rather than it being, like a punitive system where it's just removal from the list kind of a deal. Hopefully this kind of scheme would give attorneys the confidence that we're not going to give them like a grade. We're not going to say, Derek Lopez is a C+ attorney and have clients start seeing that and it gets around in the jails. And that on the flip side, right, we're still having an evaluation. There is some method of accountability and that we are performing the function we're supposed to be doing, which is making sure that all the attorneys on our list are providing effective, competent services to their clients and ensuring that those clients are well represented pursuant to the Sixth Amendment. So, like I said, we got a brief kind of draft together. I'll send that out. If anybody has any kind of questions about how that would work or thoughts about how that would work, I'm happy to listen to them right now. I've got my notepad and everything. I'll take notes. Because this is kind of a new system. This is something to address the monitoring. We expect it's going to take a substantial amount of time because we do have 160 approximately attorneys on our list. So reviewing all of them with a panel once per year is probably going to take several days. We kind of estimate it's like, well, if we do this every 6 weeks, it might take a day every 6 weeks to review 20 attorneys approximately. And that's just a guess. We haven't tried to run this once yet to see how long it would actually take a panel to do that. But just kind of a rough estimate so that we can have something together, address the monitor's concerns, and hopefully the attorney's concerns that we're regulating.
Great. You good?
Yes.
Flipping
Good.
through
Yeah.
pages. Okay. You covered a lot there. We were
Yes.
tracking. I see Susan, you have your hand up. Please jump in.
Hi, thanks. I'm thinking that maybe you should do it every 2 years and evaluate the attorneys and maybe on a rotation. That way, so for the attorneys that maybe get a thumbs down or needs additional training, they'll have time to get that feedback and then make improvements. Otherwise, they're probably finding out the results maybe like 6, 7 months into the year before the next evaluation.
Great.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank
The consent judgment I think requires we conduct them every year annually, and I think that's also the recommendation in the 10 principles. I think at some point it might make more sense to have like a biannual review rather than annual, but I think for when we're piloting the program, I think since we haven't done these evaluations, maybe it does make sense for the first year or two to have them be on an annual basis to make sure we've got everyone covered that's on the list now, and then it might be easier to kind of split things going forward.
Great. Thank you for the good input. Others that might have comments? Hands raised. Justice Maupin. Oh,
I think
and
that,
then we'll go to Judge Fairman.
I think it should be done annually so that you don't have someone giving a kind of a runway to the bottom.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Certainly, I think our oversight advisors now, like, they kind of act as interventionists on the scene, right? If they see something wrong, they say something and we all act immediately. So hopefully we can avoid the runway to the bottom even without annual review. But again, like I said, I think annual review is be the starting point, and then we can certainly talk about reevaluating that in the future.
Great. And Judge Fairman, you were up. You're on deck.
Thank you. Thank you. What I'm going to say is sort of a crossover between part of Ms. Hannah's report concerning White Pine County. I think it affects the remote rural counties as well, and a crossover into item 9A as well on recruitment and retention. You know, the issues that the Nevada State Public Defender are looking at right now with respect to the high turnover are not something new that we've experienced in rural counties. During the time that I practiced and did defense work, during the time that I was on the bench, when we had the end of the PD's presence in White Pine County in 2013, 14, then we went to private contract counsel. And then when they came back again, when the county went out, the issue has always been turnover and a lack of continuity, really having negative impacts on the flow of the court. And I'm sure with respect to the attorney-client relationship between counsel and their clients. So I'm interested to see what feedback those defendants that respond to the survey that you get. Because you can't help but think if there's 1, 2, or 3 different attorneys during the life of a particular defendant's case, that's certainly problematic. From a trust standpoint, obviously the continuity, the presentation that the lawyer is providing to his or her client, it's a big issue, and it's always been a big issue, and one that I've seen, when I was on the bench, and you'll continue, certainly to experience that. One of the ways that it's adversely affecting our courts, and I recently talked with Judge Dobrescu and received input from him and new Judge Frainer and Judge Bishop, is the fact that so many cases have to be continued. It's really jamming the court's calendars out there because of the turnover in attorneys. With respect to just getting into the flow of the cases, continuing motion hearings, continuing trials, and it's problematic. It was problematic before I retired as well in that area. Uh, so that's something obviously that can be cured by the end game, which is getting people to reside in rural Nevada. I'm going to come to that in a few minutes and maybe have some thoughts. And those are thoughts that maybe all of you have discussed in the past that I'm not aware of. But I know that talking with Judge D, we call him Judge D, Judge Debrescu, that's been an issue that is really high on his list. Is about the jamming of the courts and the continuances when you have new counsel come on. Some contract, some with the PD's office that weren't aware of some of the history of the case. Even though it's in the record, and they're in court and the courts are expecting let's go from here forward, and counsel's not ready to do that. Thus matters have to be put off. Another one that has persisted for a long time as well is that with respect to NSPD's rotation schedule, that the attorneys are continually asking that matters be continued for several weeks because it's not their week of coverage. They may be covering, at least in White Pine County, on an alternating weekly basis or every 2 weeks. And so when they are requested to come to court, or the judges want to set a hearing for next week, that counsel's unavailable simply because he or she that's not on their rotation, and they're just unavailable to appear. Same thing would happen with DID's appointed counsel. Obviously, they may have other private practice that conflicts with that, and that's understandable. But it's a matter of just coming from outside of the rural communities to the rural communities to practice, and the fact that everybody is commuting as well between where they live. Most of the time in Ely, Nevada, White Pine County, and in Lincoln, counsel come from Las Vegas, and so that's where the transportation is. But it's that level of frustration that the courts have experienced for quite some time, because of that issue. Um, and I know that David has probably had an earful from Judge Debrescu. I've talked to him about it before I retired, and it's the same. And it's not necessarily a fault of NSPD, but it's really getting and having attorneys be able to stay in that community. And as we talked about Hannah Blake down in Lincoln County, she's from Lincoln County. She's a sharp counsel. She was a law clerk for Judge Frater when he was the DA. She appeared before my court with him on some matters. She'll stay in Lincoln County forever, unless the family moves. She's from there. I was advised she was engaged to a person that lives in Panaca, and so they're not going anywhere. At least from what I know of right now, they're going to be there for a long time. So, I mean, that's great. It's great for the community. It's great for defense representation in Lincoln County, and she'll do a heck of a good job down there. There's no doubt about it with her capabilities. But that's just like sort of one in a million that we're talking about right now, as far as rural county is concerned. One of the great feeder systems that we have seen in rural Nevada through the years has been law clerks. I went out to White Pine County as a law clerk. As I said at the beginning, I never intended to stay in Lincoln County. I was headed back to Reno. Well, things developed during that year, and my wife and I became comfortable in the community, and we took a chance on Ely, and Ely took a chance on us, and we stayed. And that's the way that it worked out. I can't name them all, but if I had time, I would put down a dozen rural attorneys now that came through as law clerks in the 7th Judicial District Court. Probably 10 of which have no connection with White Pine County or rural America, that stayed in rural America. Just that 1 year experience out there from attorneys from all over, whether they were from Oregon, from Boise, from Clark County, wherever they came from. They liked the community because they stayed there. They weren't commuting. They lived in Ely just for that year. The same could be said about Elko, even. It just to experience it, and so you're there, and so you assimilate into the community a lot more than if you're staying in a motel and on Thursday afternoon or Friday afternoon you're headed home. There's never any attachment that comes out of that living arrangement to that community. And I'm just saying Ely, but it could be any rural America town. We're trying to attract a professional, like Peter mentioned, whether it's a doctor, accountant, whoever it would be. That's the same issue persists unless they're there. So I really think that the continued focus of this board has to be, how can we get these people up there to stay and to actually live during the time that they're committed to that contract to be there. You mentioned one of the issues that you're going to approach the governor on is a mortgage down payment on a home. Well, I'm thinking outside the box and I'm not spending my money. So I'll say, in addition to that, pay for a couple of years of their mortgage, so that they'd stay there. I know we've talked about, I'm sure in the past, uh, 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 waiving student loans somehow or paying off their student loans. Maybe upping the ante. I know it's budgets, and again, it's not my money I'm talking about, but I mean, pay them more money, but you got to live there for that money. You're not going home on the weekends. We want you to stay there, and obviously the representation will be heightened and enhanced between the attorneys and their clients when they're there all the time. I know with you using Zoom and that type of technology, we have a lot more remote appearances, and we've been sensitive to that over the years, even before there was Zoom, with allowing attorneys to appear telephonically in our court, before we even had that capability, because we are rural and remote. But there's nothing that is better than being able to sit across from your client, and so much of that is hand holding, in addition to the advice that you give that person, so that they can see you, hear you one on one, and develop that relationship. It's really tough when you're traveling from elsewhere and working with schedules. It's just the nature of just the transportation issue and the time issue. So I mean that benefit as far as the attorney-client relationship is better. As far as spending money as well, and this is something just I thought of this afternoon before the meeting. Maybe enhance what the rural counties pay for law clerks. We've been having a heck of a time for the last 3, 4, 5 years getting law clerks. I understand this has been tough for judges all over, even at the Supreme Court, getting law clerks. The competition from private practice and the salaries that they're offering to students coming out of law school, it's tough to compete on the dollar value. It really is. And again, we're asking them to go to rural America. Maybe we've got to bump up the salaries even more. You have some pretty poor rural counties. I mean, Lincoln County's been, we can take our law clerks there. We do there. We take our law clerks over to Eureka County. We're in the Seventh Judicial District Court, but really bump up those bucks so that we can compete a little bit more to make it attractive for people to come out there and stay. Our law clerks never commuted. They don't. They stayed. They got apartments, and obviously those ones that ultimately went into defense work or were DAs or deputy DAs. They ended up getting houses. But that's something that I just thought of today. I don't know if it could be worked out where you could pump a little bit more money, whether it's Elko County, because I know the judges up there in the recent past have had trouble getting law clerks to stay. Same issue in enhancing those salaries for those counties so that they can compete on the market. Those are just some thoughts that I had. Sorry to ramble a little bit, but I thought about this a lot since my appointment, and when David talked to me about this in December about possibly throwing my name out there to the Supreme Court for appointment. But those are some issues that we're facing, and you guys, DIDS didn't create that. It's been there for a long time. It has to do with rural America, but we've really got to go outside that box to get people to stay, because I know if you get them out there for a while, there's a really good chance they'll stay. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge Fairman. Yes, I think you're preaching to the choir here. We are, if we could turn on our magical money machine, we would do all of the things you've listed. So I know DIDS is on the task. I really appreciated the discussions on down payment assistance, things like that. So thank you. Appreciate the thought.
Let me throw a few other items just that I have on item number 8, the sub items, just kind of get through those things, and then we can add more discussion if necessary. So first, NSPD workload monitoring and reporting. The NSPD workloads actually about as expected, I guess, this quarter. Based on prior quarters, it looks like the rate of cases coming is about the same. I'll have those published this afternoon or tomorrow, probably, whenever we make sure the website's able to take new information and get it uploaded. We have all the numbers run. It looks like Massey Mayo still has a significant alert workload. It's interesting. So she has fewer open cases at the beginning of this quarter than she did in the beginning of last quarter. It's clear that they've made an effort to close a lot of their open cases. I think she received 74 new cases and closed over 140. So they're making substantial progress on both making sure the reporting is compliant and then also handling their cases in a reasonable amount of time. We could see in the last quarter that it was about 2 attorneys worth of work that they've taken on. And we know that Nestor is working with Massey and Humboldt County. They're both doing a good job. We can see that kind of work split making sense. Right now, they're approaching approximately 3 attorneys worth, which is getting just too high. So we're really hoping that the new contract with the Humboldt office and the new attorney who'd be taking the deputy public defender position there would help both give time for Massey to keep working the current workload and kind of stymie the flow of new cases on her workload so that she can work more efficiently and effectively and not be overburdened by cases that are supposed to be handled by the public defender's office anyways. There's just nobody currently in the office to handle it now. So hopefully that will become kind of self-resolving. We've had really good communication with Patrick Mansfield and Massey Mayo in the last, really since the beginning, but they're both doing a fantastic job out there and in Lyon County. We're really happy that they've been taking this work on behalf of the state public defender. They perform very well for their clients, as Derek mentioned earlier. So I don't have any criticisms. They've had some really good wins for their clients, and it seems like they're handling the caseload well, but we don't want that to tip into an area where they're taking on too many cases, and the NSPD isn't taking its fair share of cases. So hopefully that'll self-resolve. If it doesn't for some reason, then we'll be taking some other actions. Yeah, so I kind of move on then to the NAPD for continued improvement. All 3 of us, myself, Hama, and Brenda, will be attending the NAPD's Leadership Institute in May in Detroit. So it's a week-long specialty program put on by the National Association of Public Defense. It's leaders that are performing in similar roles, either office heads or defense system leaders. So similar agencies in various states all get together once a year. It's advanced training, networking for people dealing with similar issues, how different programs are working or not working, roundtabling best practices. So the monitor mentioned this in her 16th report, that we needed some more training in the area of public defense management, leadership. So we've signed up for that. We're getting on board. We're working very close with the NAPD. We'll further our own knowledge and abilities and then be able to hopefully institute better and ideally tested systems from other places here in Nevada. For technical assistance, we're going to be finalizing the terms and the scope of work with the NAPD. There'll be kind of 2 stages. One is kind of the fact gathering, seeing what it is we do here, how the system works. And then they've already kind of built a team of experts and leaders from states with similar systems as ours, Michigan, I think somewhere in the Northeast, Maine, maybe. And then the director will be taking of the NAPD will be taking a role in this as well. And then we'll be having a second phase contracted in with the entirety of contract. So ideally, it would kind of be a multi-year system where they evaluate where our system is and then create like a white paper. Here's what the system could be, and then also carry on implementation. So they work with us to help implement any of the recommendations they had as to how the system could be improved, what the best practices look like. The goal, right, being that we could be, their white paper at the end or kind of a gold standard system. I certainly think we have the people and capability to do it. It's just kind of getting that expertise, bringing it in, and then implementing it. And the last one is the county and contract redevelopment amendment efforts. I think I've probably beat that already to death. we are doing that. It's going to go well. Our partners have been excellent in the last few months about being both proactive and reaching out to us that they intend to recontract and want to amend their contract so that they are compliant and they're adjusted appropriately, and with responding to questions or concerns we had about the contracts. So I expect that those will be moving forward in the next few months. Probably the next couple of months. And then, like I said, we'll probably be bringing back around a renewed model contract for the department to the board's attention for a future meeting. If there are any questions on anything in 8, I'm happy to answer them. I just say something.
Oh,
That's Robert.
No, this is Homa there. On the subject of getting creative, one thing about folks living out there and staying out there is we're finding that people are leaving the state for law school from our rural. I talked to one young woman who went to Mississippi for law school because she said she was priced out of UNLV Boyd Law. And so like that would be an area to be creative, is how do we get folks to stay in Nevada and not form those relationships somewhere else that isn't here. Luckily she came back to her home in Elko and really wants to stay there. And then also on getting creative, I know from talking to HR folks who have worked with the courts and law clerks, one of their biggest challenges is people are coming out and they're just working that year and they don't want to contribute to PERS. So that chunk of money that, if they don't stay as a public employee, that is, in the meantime, they need it for housing, they need it for other things. And I know other people have been trying this, but I think it might be worth looking into, if we're even not increasing the overall, compensation, shifting that compensation isn't being diverted to retirement when law clerks are just fresh out of law school and they don't necessarily know if they want to stay in public service, or they might go and do indigent defense, in a private sense. And then I'll also just mention that we had Mr. Langford was going to wait for NIE on the agenda. Is this the item or was it the later one?
We can take it here talking about kind of how the county redevelopment and amendments are working. That might be a good spot for Robert to jump in. I talked about the contract, but he can talk about a lot of the changes that he's been spearheading in the system and how things are working with appointment of council down there, especially since they've moved up to 11 contractors, which is probably no small feat to try and manage that many people.
Easy. It's easy. So I, for the sake of brevity, I have kind of written things down. So I will start. I've been able to establish a good working relationship with all but one of the Nye County Justices of the Peace and all but one of the district court judges. Recently, all of them have agreed to a new method for appointing the contract attorneys immediately upon finding indigency. The process allows for the immediate notification of both the appointed attorney and the district attorney's office. It shortens the discovery timeline by 3 to sometimes 10 days. Consequently, the 15-day preliminary hearing mandated by NRS 171.1962 will be possible and not, hopefully not necessitate a continuance by defense counsel for lack of discovery or communication with the prosecutor prior to the time set up for the preliminary hearing, or in some cases, a pretrial meeting. Everybody's on board with this change. New process has been around now for almost 3 weeks. There have been some bumps and challenges, but the feedback has been really positive, particularly from the judges. Additionally, I coordinated with the assistant county manager for Nye County to post a solicitation for more attorneys. And everybody says, well, we're getting up to speed. We're only shy one attorney. Why are we posting for more attorneys? Approving attorney contracts can take months. And with the recent addition of several new attorneys, it becomes more likely that we might lose one or two to outside opportunities. And so maintaining a fallback list is prudent to minimize disruption to client services. If we have somebody sort of waiting in the wings that can be approved quickly by the board, county commission in Nye County, we won't have a process where, oh, well, now we're 3 months behind and everybody has to pick up the slack for the attorney that we lost. Another priority has been the removal of 432B cases from the caseload of Nye County contract attorneys. Originally, we were kind of told, okay, everybody agrees this is going to end in January. It's been a little bit slower than that. If Nye County is firmly committed to the change, and I believe that the future contracts are not going to include 432B appointments in Nye County. But it has been disappointingly slow. Another priority, I guess that's about it. So overall, the past few months have been exciting, marked by several victories in building a process that provides representation of the first quality for indigent defense clients. And I appreciate the opportunity to address the board. That's it. Well, as I said a couple of months ago, more to come.
Thank you, Mr. Langford.
This is Homa. Some of the delay on the 432B language coming out of the contracts, we've gone back and forth on some language, and then Lorena had gotten it to us, and then it is with us right now for sort of the final red lines. And so I just want to own our part of the delay. They were moving along, and we got caught up in some other interesting things, and so that's on our desk. So I just wanted to take that on.
Okay. Director Handy, anything else on that item?
The only other thing I'd mention about the monitor's most recent report is the last comments that she's kind of had a few times about systematic training. I think we thought that we were doing that with, we're having monthly training plus the annual conference. The monitor still thinks there should be some kind of new attorney training. We kind of mentioned earlier, right? I was going to say roping in, maybe that is accurate. Our current oversight contractors and folks like Robert Langford to kind of help onboard attorneys who are new to criminal defense or just new to rural practice. Practicing in rural Nevadas, well, it's different across all 15 counties, but it's also very different from practicing in Washington County or Clark County. And just having, I think, a brief intake, even just a couple of days, right? Shadow an attorney who works in the area, meet the judges, meet the clerks, meet the DAs that work in the county, get to know the folks that you'd be working with on your cases, get to know the people in the jail so that you can get to meet your client when you need to, things like that. Very important for the attorneys to figure out earlier on rather than perhaps learning it the hard way from a judge or opposing counsel or another attorney in the area or David Sheik or somebody. So we're trying to put something together. It might be something that we include in the model contract, right, to kind of indicate, as the department may determine attorneys may be required to shadow another attorney or to work with the local oversight contractor or local counsel administrator to get some initial training regarding either working in the county or working in criminal defense. So we're trying to build an outline on that so that we have a more systematic new attorney training. As Justice Maupin mentioned earlier, I think writing's a big component of what we could always do better as attorneys. So I think that's something that we can we'll be trying to work in through a rotation of regular training and potentially something to consider for future conferences.
Justice Maupin.
If it's appropriate, I would be willing to volunteer to participate in that because I've studied this problem at some length. And it's also, I may be able to give some special insights as to how a judicial officer receives, these communications. So if that's appropriate, I'll be happy to do it. If it isn't, then
I don't think it's inappropriate. Or Derek's here online, but well, there he is.
No, I mean it's not an official board action as long as we're not getting a majority of board members together to discuss the stuff outside the public meeting. there's no issue with Judge Maupin, having some input in that.
So expect an email.
Thanks, Todd.
Just no reply alls, please.
Right. All right. Any other board comments or questions on item number 8? Or staff comments or questions? Well, we had a nice lead-in by Judge Fairman on the number 9 Nevada State Public Defender status update on Humboldt and White Pine offices. I know Mr. Coates is out today, so Peter, if you could update, this one is for discussion only.
Yes, and this is going to be things that we've already mentioned, either by our oversight attorneys or by myself earlier. For recruitment and retention, as indicated, we should have a part-time contractor coming on board to work in Humboldt County. It seems like sometime in June, certainly no later than the beginning of July, but I anticipate June's a date that we're going to make, at least on the contracting end. As to when he wants to start taking cases, that's going to be more up to the contractor than it is to us. There's also the new attorneys being brought on as a full-time employee in the Humboldt County office. That's expected to begin early to mid-May, which is great, as I mentioned earlier, for the workload issue that's kind of stacking up for Massey Mayo. And also giving some life, I think, to the Humboldt County office, having somebody there full-time, a place where the attorneys will be able to meet with their clients and meet the investigators and hopefully act as an organic office rather than just kind of, the place where the staff works while another attorney office handles most of the caseload. Mr. Coates also informed me that he has quotes from All Star Talent and Deloitte for doing a nationwide talent searches. So hopefully those will get going sooner rather than later to fill any remaining roles that he has available, or at least kind of get the word out there that relative to what some other states are paying their public defenders, these are good places to work and we pay reasonable wages. Certainly not the best in the state of Nevada by a large margin, but I can only, I guess I could spend more time begging and pleading with the powers that be to add more money to those salaries, but I don't have the kind of political capital that I need to, make that kind of money move. But we try. I think that's it right now for the NSPD status and update. I already went over kind of the workload reporting. If there are any questions about that, I'm happy to answer them.
Board members, any questions or comments for Director Handy on this item? All right, hearing none, that was for discussion. So we'll move on to our next item, number 10, which I also think we've covered a little bit, but workload compliance update. So Peter, take us away on that item for the different counties.
We have, and I will try to keep this brief. This is really, I've added all of the Davis counties just so we're, making sure we're all on the same page about where compliance is at. Of course, we're looking at approaching deadline of August 30th, I believe, even though there's 31 days, they picked 30th. So to that end, we'll start with Churchill County. The Public Defender's Office has 4 employees, including Jacob Summer. They're going to be adding a 5th sometime in the fall. They have an intern right now. Jacob's running a great office. They keep adding staff. We're getting really good feedback from the people who work there. The judges and the DA's office are excellent partners in the system to work with over there. So it sounds like they're developing really well. They also still have a contract attorney to handle third tier indigent defense cases, and they have the Ultimate Public Defender's Office works there. I'm not sure if they're going to be offering a deputy to his office. I think that's in the works though.
That's what I said,
Yeah. So there may be a total of 7 total positions between the 2 offices. And the one contract, it sounds like they plan on retaining. But as of right now, there are 4 attorneys in the PD's office, 1 attorney in the LPD's office, and 1 contractor. So they're well on their way to meeting compliance around August. The Douglas County right now has 6 contractors. I believe they have more than 12 part-time contractors that they also use as kind of another rotated attorney. As Derek Lopez mentioned, I think they're looking to add another full-time attorney beginning of the new fiscal year, so hopefully starting in July. That would bring up to 7 full-time attorneys plus somewhere between 12 to 20. I don't know exactly where that number of part-time attorneys. Douglas County's also been interested in having their appeals go through the NSPD instead of being done by their attorneys, so that would certainly shift some of the attorney need from their contractors back over to the NSPD. From my reading of the workloads today, it looks like Mr. Hoffman, who's the appeals chief in the NSPD, has the bandwidth to handle more attorneys. More appeals cases over the course of a year. So I'll be talking to him to kind of see what his bandwidth really is. Sometimes the numbers and feeling on the ground can be different for workloads, so get an idea of that. And I'll be working with Douglas County. It might be something we do in the interim as like a voluntary corrective action, like we've done in the past with other places, so they can begin transferring those appeals cases sooner in time rather than waiting until the next budget cycle to begin. I think the opt-in period closes this November or December. I had to double check the statute to begin service in 2028. So hopefully we'll get them in sooner rather than later. It might be that we need more staff at the NSPD to cover that workload. I haven't seen what the Douglas County appeals workload has been over the last several years, so we can project it out. But the Supreme Court keeps really good records of the cases that come to their to that agent, to the court, and where they come from. So we should be able to get a pretty good idea pretty readily. Yeah, is there a question or comment, Justice Moore?
Yes. I don't know what the numbers are. I mean, we could perhaps get it from the most recent annual report of the Supreme Court, which show which counties have the most appeals.
Right.
But in general, if you transfer this to someone else in the direct appeal stage, you lose all the institutional memory of the case, and the person then has to learn the whole case themselves, and that is a huge waste of resources. And I don't know. I would want to know a lot more about, particularly in Douglas County, about what their problem is, because that's a big county, relatively speaking, in the state. They don't have the same kind of budgetary restraints in the operation of the county that these other rural counties do. And so I don't want to cast any aspersions, but generally that creates, and everybody talks about government efficiency these days. That is a serious creates a serious potential for duplication of resources, and that's a big enough county where they can, they can find a way of providing these services. I don't know where this is coming from. I suspect I know where it's coming from, and if I'm right, I couldn't disagree more with doing what they're proposing.
I don't know exactly where it's coming from. I know we proposed this, we being the department, to several counties several years ago as a way to decrease the amount of attorneys needed to meet the workload standards. So the idea would be by shifting cases from the trial level attorneys to the NSPD, they'd have to handle fewer cases that the workload rates is pretty heavily weighted cases. So if we can move, 5 or 10 appeals cases, that's somewhere between 250 to 500 attorney hours from the line trial level attorneys to the state public defender. That would help both allow those attorneys to better meet the workload that's existing in that county, and then also hopefully make them more efficient so they're not having to spend as much time. So it would reduce the immediate need of attorneys on the ground that are needed for the trial level cases, and shift part of that weight to the state public defender's office.
When I started this project back on the Supreme Court back in the early part of this century now, we were very concerned about the performance standards from the ABA, and we adopted them. And there was a very interesting reaction to this. The district attorneys from the two big counties came in howling about this prospect. But the performance standards do a lot more than people think in terms of creating a standard of responsibility for indigent defense entities. And appeals are a critical phase of the criminal procedure. And so there are a bunch of considerations here that I think ought to be addressed. Like I say, I'm not sure what is going into this, but we might want to go back and pull up the original administrative docket item that created the Indigent Defense Commission in the first instance, and see where that went.
Yeah, thanks. I think that that's a good idea. Certainly, I know there are separate standards, right, in the defense function standards for how appeals get handled, and for just trial level work. So those are also important to this. I know there are some differences of opinion as to whether trial counsel should handle their own appeals. Some are kind of in favor of, well, it's a record review kind of situation, so fresh eyes might be better. Some are the opinion, right, that, well, the person who tried the case has more intimate knowledge than somebody who's just looking at the record on review and would be able to add value that the person reviewing might miss. So I think it's certainly exploring what the best practice, this board and the stakeholders we have would think the best practices are.
Maybe that's something that should be looked at, but the most of the 90%, if not more, of the court's either criminal or civil caseload has simply to do with error correction from the record. And when you have a case that raises some sort of issue of first impression, there's less of a problem with bringing in a person who does nothing but appeals to handle those. But those are a much smaller number of the actual cases that the lawyers encounter. So just as a practical matter, it would seem to me that somebody ought to get together and examine where this dynamic fits in, because in an error correction case, all you have to do is have somebody who understands the calendaring system of the court for activities and follows them, so the cases that are just they're just error correction problems. You may be throwing the baby out with the bathwater if you start going down that road to try to address a problem that comes up in a small number of cases versus the general problem that comes up in about 90% of the cases. That
certainly makes sense to me. Yeah. Thanks. I appreciate all that input. We'll certainly look into it. Luckily, we have our insider from the Court of Appeals here to kind of give us some better insight as to the inner workings. And then I think it's a good idea to both reach out to, in a neutral kind of fashion, right? Reach out to current judges and justices and kind of get opinions as to what they think the best practices might be for these kinds of transfers. And frankly, right, whether or not they're appropriate. And it might be the Supreme Court believes that it's not, and that there needs to be a rule change or something. I don't know.
The shortest method to deal with this would be to get the head of the criminal division of the central staff.
Yeah.
And because that's they're processing appeals, they may be able to give you a much, a better current assessment of the issue than I could.
Perfect. We will reach out to them then.
Okay.
Oh, do you have something to add?
No, I was just
Oh, okay.
pointing at Brenda when you used the royal we.
Oh.
I was just like, it's Brenda.
By the way, when I'm suggesting these things, I am casting those versions on our in-house expert.
I didn't take it that way.
I'll move along. Even though a lot of these things were mentioned before. Esmeralda County, Jason Ernest is there. He has an attorney working with him. If for some reason he wins the election and becomes a sitting judge, then it may be that his current, I think she's an intern, but I think she's licensed elsewhere, might be able to step in that role and cover Esmeralda County. We're hoping that she stays in the area and continues practicing indigent defense. Eureka County has, as mentioned, Jane Everhardy covering those cases. In the event she wins an election, becomes a judge, we'll have to figure out what happens in Eureka County. Certainly, there aren't a lot of attorneys in the area to choose from to help replace her. I don't know if anyone could replace Jane practically, but to replace that function, I'm sure we could figure something out between attorneys that are in kind of the Northeast, and it might be something that we'll work with the county with to see if they have any recommendations as well. Lander County currently has Kyle Swanson, as mentioned. There's also 2 conflict contracts backing up that mainline contract. Lincoln County, again, has Shane Manueli and Hannah Blake, who we'd already talked about before, meeting their workload obligations. Lyon County, as I mentioned, we're working to redraft the contracts to ensure there's appropriate coverage. Patrick Mansfield's office seems to have no issues with either the workload or their performance, so we're pretty confident in the number of attorneys being rendered there. Mario Walder, I think, is put in to run for DA in Lyon County, so if for some reason he wins that seat and his contract ends, Lyon County will be having to rework their contract system. Currently, I think he's mostly handling juvenile cases anyways right now, if not entirely juvenile cases.
And specialty courts.
And specialty courts, that's right. But I think administration in that county has been, again, fairly responsive, and I think they shouldn't have any problems finding alternatives should these things happen. Like I mentioned, we'll be working closely with Kale and with county leadership to make sure that his contract actually reflects both what his firm is doing to get attorney coverage and what that looks like, so we have some more transparency. If needed, we'll be working with the contract or with the county to see if new contracts might be necessary for additional contractors in the event, right, we all come to the realization that there aren't, in fact, enough attorneys providing enough coverage such that clients are getting adequate representation and meeting the workload requirements. In Nye County, there are 11 contractors, and as Robert Langford mentioned, it sounds like they're going to be soliciting for more, just in case a couple fall off at the end of the fiscal year, end of the contract term. So they'll have a few kind of in the dugout waiting to be called up if for some reason that happens, or they might need. Hopefully, they'll be still filling the 12th position that's required under the workload standard after that solicitation goes out. Mineral County currently has 2 contractors meeting their workload requirement. Kirsty Pickering is the second contractor. Many of you might know her from her work in White Pine County. She's been a regular attorney on our list, and she does excellent work for her clients and has been great to work with in the past. And the last is White Pine County, where the state public defender, again, we've mentioned this enough times. Jane Everhardy is still a contract there. If for some reason she wins an election, then we'll be looking for whoever we can to fill the role. Of course, hopefully somebody local or somebody willing to move to the area, but hardships remain. I'm happy to answer any questions about workload compliance or the number of attorneys in any of the counties.
Board members, are there any questions or comments for Director Handy? Okay. Thank you all for sticking with us. We are now moving, that was item number 10. It was just for discussion, so thank you. Item number 11 discusses 2 upcoming meetings, one in May, one in June. The May meeting, and this is for possible action, but if we don't have any changes, the May meeting is scheduled for May 14th at 1 p.m. And then the June 11th meeting is also scheduled for 1 p.m. Are there any board members that have heartache with that? Do we want to make changes? I'm available for both. I'm available for the May 14th. I have a hard stop at 3, but I can certainly turn it over to Vice Chair Hickman if he's available on that day if we go long. Board members, any comments or questions on the meeting dates? Yes.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was looking at Judge Fairman. Go ahead. Did you have, I saw your hand raised. No, you're muted. There you
Madam Chair, if there's no discussion, I'll make a motion to approve those 2 meeting dates.
Thank you, Mr. Blakey. I think, Judge Fairman, when you were trying to talk, you were muted, and then I think you ditched out. So, Justice Maupin, did you have something? I think I saw you make a motion. Okay. All right.
I was just going to say I'm unavailable for June 11th, but don't change the meeting date.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. We have a motion to accept both of those meeting dates. Thank you, Mr. Blakey. Does anybody else have any questions? If not, I'm looking for a second.
Second.
Thank you. I think that was Justice Maupin. All right. If no other board discussion or comments and no public comment on the item, I will invite everyone that is in favor to please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that motion passes. We are on to our final item, which is item number 12, which is public comment. Thank you all again for sticking with us on this meeting. This is a period for any matter within the jurisdiction of the public body. And if you have anything that you would like to comment on, please keep that comment to 3 minutes or less. Do I have anyone out there that would like to make public comment?
Madam Chair, on behalf of Churchill County, we would just like to say thank you to those comments previous about the death of our sheriff. And our community is definitely mourning. But as we all, if you knew him, he would want us to move forward. So we are moving forward as best as we can. So thank you again for those nice comments earlier.
Yes, thank you to our staff that recognize that. I apologize that I wasn't the one to do that, Mr. Blakey, but we are certainly with you in spirit and know that we want to continue his good work and memory. So thank you so much for being here in light of all of that.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments?
Madam Chair, this is Homa. Our new website is live. We are still kind of moving some stuff around. It's we're just looking at ways to make sure that people can find what they need. We were able to get some analytics about the most visited pages and try to move those around. And next phase will be to make the complaint and recommendation and feedback forms online more user-friendly, and that'll hopefully encourage some engagement.
Excellent.
So give us a click, and you can also follow us on our LinkedIn page.
Great. We will look forward to that. I believe oh no, I don't see it. Oh yeah, it is. It's in the little public comment procedure portion of the agenda. If you ever, there's a little link in there. It's very small, but if anyone needs to know what that website is, I think it's still the same, right? Which is dids.nv.gov. Okay.
Yes, but there might be some, if practitioners are watching this, there may be some old things they may have bookmarked that haven't disappeared. They just may have moved. So please ping us if we haven't gotten to verifying that for you. And just for the sake of the record, our staff let me know that Mr. Nader was able to join, as the meeting was going on. So we appreciate that he was able to jump on after his other obligation.
Wonderful. I've also seen, I think I saw our fellow board member Frierson was on for a moment. So hopefully that's grabbed by someone. I don't know if Casey's grabbing that okay, I see head nods, great. So we can recognize board members that were here even after the roll call. Thank you. Okay, if there's no other public comment, thank you all for your attendance today, and we are adjourned.
Thank you. I'll note that there's nobody in the room here in Carson City to give public comment.
Thank you. I figured someone would wave me down if that were the case. So
that's why you're getting the Brady Bunch panels for all three of us, and I'm in every panel. So
it's been an adventure. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all so much.
We'll see you next month. Take good care.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Kate. Bye-bye.
Thank you.